Guys, welcome to Carismo Design. My name is Kirill. Thanks for joining us on another installation video. Today we'll be walking you through the process of installing a signature Carismo Design steering wheel on your Lamborghini Urus. We'll be walking you through the process of a general installation, which applies to our cut tops, flat tops, and any standard signature designs, as well as the wiring required if you're buying a V1 or V2 LED shift light steering wheel from us. Let's get right to it. As always, whenever working with steering wheels or an airbag, first thing we do is we disconnect the battery. We went ahead, took the liberty to do this before we started the video. In the Urus, it's simply in your trunk. You lift up the liner, and there it is. Time to pull the steering wheel off the car. First thing we do, as always, is remove the airbag. Airbag on this car is held in by two clips from the back. To access those clips, we have to rotate our steering wheel about a quarter turn in each direction. So we're gonna start by turning the steering wheel about 90 degrees. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my cell phone. I'm gonna put it into selfie mode. This is going to give me a good visibility of what I'm doing behind the steering wheel. Put it in your dash. As you see on my screen, I already see the access hole for the release clip of the airbag. The little silver line is that release clip. Now, the release clip is positioned in such a way that it is at the top or the outer side of your steering wheel, and you need to press it inward towards the center of the steering wheel. So start by pivoting your screwdriver upwards and then angle it down to get the spring down. It's gonna take a little bit of fishing around to get it out of there. It's a pretty tight space. Make sure you don't stab away at the center of your airbag. Make sure you really feel that you're on a clip before you start going crazy pushing. And then once you do find the clip, you're gonna depress it and you're gonna pull that corner of the airbag out. It should unclip relatively easily. Next step is to disconnect the wiring from behind it so that we can get this airbag off and we can take our steering wheel off. You'll find a large clock spring connector, the yellow one at the top, that you need to disconnect first. You're gonna use a flathead screwdriver, put it on the red tab and pull that tab out. Boom, tab comes out. That means the connector is also ready to come out. The next thing to do is unclip the white tab on the bottom holding the rest of the harness. Boom, I pulled it out. And then remove the black connector from its housing. Rest this airbag between your lap and disconnect the black connector. So we're just gonna pull it apart with a little bit of brute force. Boom, your airbag is off the car. Let's put this thing aside and take off our steering wheel. Your center nut on this car is an M12. If you don't have an M12, a T55 like I'm using is absolutely fine. Usually the Lambo cars come with a good bit of Loctite, so you might have to brace that steering wheel with your knee, or you might need a second pair of hands. I broke it loose just before the video so I can get this done on my own. We're gonna unscrew that center nut. So as we always do, we don't take off the center nut completely, leave it on here loose, enough space for the steering wheel to move. The reason we do this every single time is because we do not want to damage the clock spring by yanking out the steering wheel and the clock spring coming out with it just by freak chance. So this prevents the steering wheel from coming off completely. Use this to wiggle it side to side, loosen it up. See, now it moves freely on the column. And now I'm good to remove the center nut. Center nut is out. I can safely and slowly take off the OEM steering wheel. Boom, we're ready for the next step. Okay, first things first, let's remove the three big pegs in your steering wheel that hold your airbag. So these three pegs are held in by three T20 screws. We're just gonna grab a T20 Torx bit, unscrew all three, and then pull off each respective peg. We're gonna take just a pair of pliers and we're gonna pull the plastic pegs out and towards the center. Out towards the center, one. And we'll do that with the rest. So for this next step, I'm just gonna use a little regular plastic prying tool. First, we're gonna remove the upper trim piece. The upper trim piece is connected by two pegs. One peg on the right side, one peg on the left side. If you do not pry at this side in an attempt to remove the trim, what you'll do is you'll end up breaking the center trim in half. So definitely make sure you're prying at the points where the peg sits. Right here, I'm pulling this peg out. You can see it's starting to move out. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. Get this side out as well. Boom. This side's loose, this side comes out, trim comes out. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing on the bottom. On the bottom, we've got a peg dead center in the middle. We're gonna wanna pry it down there again to not break the trim in half. Let me get myself a better angle. Boom. I unclipped that peg, and now I can gently remove the other two sides. Bang, trim is out. Last trim to remove is your Italian flag center trim down here. There's a peg at one side and a peg at the other top side. So we're gonna pry here and there gently. This one takes a little bit longer, a little bit more effort. So just take your time with it. Make sure you don't damage anything, don't break any pins. Okay, moving this one up a little bit. This one as well. Here we go. This side came up. This side came up. Now we pivot the trim a bit forward. Boom, just like that. Okay guys, the next step is to remove the buttons. The buttons have a retaining clip on the inner side. If you take a good look, there's a little clip over here that I'm gonna be lifting up and over the peg right here. We want to make sure that at all times when we're trying to take the buttons off, the peg is cleared. So once the peg is cleared, we basically pull the button out gently, extremely gently. Here, there's a high chance of breaking or ripping a connector. Please take your time. Do not make that mistake. I'm using a pry tool. I'm gonna get under the button on both sides and slowly but gently get it out. Again, we make sure that the clip is clearing the little pin. Okay. You might need a second pair of hands here. As you see, as I pry this up, my tool falls out. Okay, the bottom of my buttons has come loose. I'm gonna pry a little bit and gently at the top. You can see the button is slowly coming out, gently. Button is out, do not yank it out. We've got the connector here coming to your other set of buttons, and we've got your actual button connector on the very back. This connector is extremely fragile. It is not sold separately by Lamborghini. There are no replacements other than buying a new steering wheel. Do not break this connector at any cost. Be very gentle with it. Make sure you remove it first. So it has that little clip. Pull it out gently. Here we go. Whew, pressure is off. We've got our left hand button out. Now we're gonna work on the right hand side, and then we're gonna remove our paddles. So the shift paddles are just held on by one Torx bolt. We're gonna unscrew this Torx bolt. And our paddle is basically ready to come out. Again, careful with the connector. It's still attached to your paddle. It's actually looped on from the top right here, as you can see. So when you'll be removing your paddle shifter, do so ever gently. The paddle shifter on the back side will come out towards the center of the steering wheel. So I'm gonna pull it like that. We're gonna remove our paddle shifters. They're simply held on by one Torx screw. So grab your Torx bit and unscrew that screw. Oh, get over here. Okay, now that the screw is out, we are going to remove the paddle by pulling the outside of the paddle towards the center of the steering wheel. So I'm grabbing the paddle here and pulling it outward. Remember, this connector that's fragile is still connected to your paddle. Be gentle, don't yank it out and assume the connector will follow the hole. It won't, you'll rip it. Okay, gently, and now this is where we disconnect the connector on the other side of the paddle so as to free the harness. I'm not pulling the connectors free here. On this side, there's that same exact fragile connector. I am going to use a sharp tool to depress the pin and gently fish the connector out. Boom, our paddle is freed, our connector is in one piece, we are safe. Okay guys, we've got our Carismo design steering wheel that we'll be installing today, and we've got our OEM components from your stock steering wheel. The process of reassembly is the exact same process that you just went through in reverse. So put all these components back on your steering wheel and you're ready to take it to the car. This section is only applicable to you if you purchased an V1 or V2 LED shift light steering wheel from us. This steering wheel needs to get some sort of electrical power to function, so we'll show you here how we prefer to wire it at the shop when we do it. So your Carismo LED steering wheel will have come with 3 wires. You're gonna have red for power, black for ground, blue for auxiliary. This installation does not require your auxiliary wire. We're actually going to use the connector of the auxiliary wire as a simple implementation for us drawing power at 12 volts. So we're gonna snip this off, we're gonna cut that off and save it for later. The only 2 wires we're actually gonna be working with will be the ground and power. So your ground wire on this application will be installed right here at one of the 3 peg locations where you can see the metal frame of your steering wheel. We obviously prefer the left-hand side, which is closer to where the wires come out on our steering wheels. You're gonna put this under your screw it on, and this will serve as your ground. Alternative location for grounding on this steering wheel application would be the black connector. The black connector starts with a purple wire and ends with 2 yellow wires, at least in this year Urus. So you'll have your connector, the wide base at the bottom. We're gonna start on the left-hand side. The second wire over will be our power. The third will be ground if you choose to use this wire as a ground instead of using the steering wheel frame. So you have 2 options. The reason I give you 2 options is because sometimes ground is unreliable in certain locations on certain vehicles. And if you find yourself not being able to get a reliable ground, always use a voltmeter to double check, make sure that you're getting 12 volts from the second wire that we're talking about and ground on the third wire or on the metal frame. Use whatever ends up being more reliable. The power wire is the second wire from the left, usually purple and then black. So that black second wire is where we tapped for power. If you recall, we cut off the blue wire connector, this one right here. And this is the connector we're actually just gonna solder to our second black power wire. And it's gonna look something like this. Now you're simply going to use this plug to connect up to your red wire power plug. Connect them together, and there you have a reliable connection for 12 volts. Okay, we've got everything assembled on our Carismo LED steering wheel. We've connected the power. Let's come take a closer look how that power works. So as we were discussing earlier, we have our ground connected to the left-hand side right here on the actual frame of the steering wheel under the bolt. And we have our power wire, the red one, which we're gonna connect to that blue connector we put onto the black one. So I'm gonna plug those 2 together and you are going to have, oh Lord, and you're gonna have your connection for power right here. Obviously, once this is connected, we wanna tuck it out of the way, make sure it clears the actual airbag itself, stash it at the bottom of the steering wheel, and make sure when you're guiding the airbag in, you don't pinch any of the wires. Okay, we're gonna throw on our Carismo design steering wheel. We're gonna align it by the splines, try to center it as best as you can. Keep in mind, sometimes you can be 1 spline off, your steering wheel might be slightly off. If that's the case, once you go for a drive, you realize that, simply go back, move it over 1 spline, and you should have it centered. Tighten it. Airbag goes back on just the way it came off. Black connector first, white tab into the housing of the steering wheel, and then yellow clock spring connector last at the top. Then we push it in. So for those of you who have a LED shift light steering wheel from us, your steering wheel will have come with a wiring harness and a module box. So the communications module box is what you will plug the gray end of your harness into. And then the only other side that you need to plug anywhere is the female OBD2 port connector. This will go in your footwell, plug into your OBD2 port, and we're going to stash this bundle out of the way using double-sided tape in the footwell so you don't end up kicking it accidentally while you're driving. All right, let's take this thing for a spin. So first impressions, our signature flat top steering wheel always feels very nice in hand. I mean, it's just beefy. It feels like a Urus wheel should feel. And our shift light, let's get it. Nice. Perfectly programmed. Full RPM band. Looks good. Downshift, bring us up in the RPMs. Do another little pull. Love this thing. So one thing you'll notice is when we drop in RPMs, if you're just cruising around town, second, third gear, and we're in the lower range, essentially all you have is a beautiful flat top signature steering wheel, and you're not even noticing that the LED's here, which was our design intention behind introducing the V2 sequential Ferrari style LED. A lot of guys were complaining that the original V1 LED that converges looks bulky and it's very obvious even when it's not illuminated. So this was a great solution for having a shift light and also feeling like on the days that you're just cruising, it's not a toy and not, you know, a gimmick.